Calling all beings. Calling all beings.
Welcome back to Calling All Beings. I'm your host, DJ, along with the one and only Massachusetts, Helen of Troy, my homie, Boston Bia. What's up?
What's up? Happy Saturday night.
Happy Saturday night to you. What we got going on tonight, Bia?
Well, we have two amazing ladies coming on to talk to us.
That's right. All right. You guys know her because she has appeared on shows, and essentially this young lady, this successful business owner, entrepreneur, owner of two law firms, and she sits on more boards than a lot of surfers do. She likes that one. Has come here to shed light on what is almost unbelievable, what's happening in Massachusetts with regard to Bias Bev and her cast of characters from the Norfolk DA, the MSP, and the Canton Police Office. Hi, Helena Rafferty, XOXO. And she actually, I heard her today on Young Jerks, a great show with Mike, and she was encouraging she used the word barristers, which really struck my English, my UK soul, to come and join her in this fight. So without further delay, let us please welcome in cab homie, awesome attorney, cool, badass lady, Nan Gallagher. Can somebody give me an amen for Nan Gallagher in this joint? Yes.
And can I add, she's also very down to earth and very down to earth, very approachable.
Thank you. I appreciate that, guys. It's always the warmest welcome when I come see you. How are you today?
We're doing great, man. We got a great bunch of people in the chat. Got some working out done this morning, so we could try to look like you.
Oh, please. There ain't no muscle here. Bia's met me in person. It's kind of just not much there.
Sinewy. You're sinewy. Is that the right way? I don't know if that's the right answer.
That's a good word for me. I like that.
And you know what? It's funny. I had to write down a question today that is a takeoff from your conversation with Mike.
Okay.
And you spoke about and so we're going to do this, and then what's going to happen? First of all, hello everybody in the chat. Hello Kimberly McGuire. Welcome, and Debbie Blair and everybody else, Hillary, everybody that's here. I just saw somebody Ann Weber. Timely manner. I love some of your names. Valhalla Law, the Massachusetts attorney, is here, your colleague.
Hey.
And so I was sitting there listening to you, and you said that there's going to be a reckoning for Hank Brennan. And I was curious what type of reckoning could be. So in other words, what form could that take? Some sort of reckoning after this trial unfolds and comes to a conclusion?
That's a great question. And I have used that word just a handful of times, and one of which was today. And for anyone who's interested, I kind of stole that line from the end of, there's a movie that came out, I think it was in 2002, called Cold Mountain with Nicole Kidman and Jude Law. And it was Civil War based love story and war story. And towards the end of the movie, after all of this kind of corruption in how the Civil War deserters were treated, those who just walked away from the war, Nicole Kidman had a line where she looked one of the corrupt law enforcement individuals in the face, and she said, "There will be a reckoning." And that always kind of stuck with me. And I'm sure, and I really just don't know, but I'm sure there is some biblical background to it, but I took it from the cinema. But in terms of a reckoning, I really do believe in that in this case, the Karen Reed case, and frankly, the Aiden Carney case, which is tied to it, but certainly separate from it. I'm of the opinion, with my legal background, to say that I look at, once she is acquitted and he is acquitted, although perhaps his charges will be dismissed outright, and there's some pending applications to do that, that there will be some type of look back, whatever it is, in terms of what went wrong, what officers were really at fault, who covered things up, what individuals who have been named as third-party culprits and or co-conspirators in any potential cover-up of, what I don't believe was ever an intentional murder of John O'Keefe. I just feel that there was probably something that went awry, and then I wish cooler heads had prevailed and that law enforcement had been called and people had been held accountable. But that does not seem to have been the case, as it tracks with the facts that have come out. And once there is this, quote, look back, there will be consequences that range from those who were really at ground zero from the tragic events of January 29th, 2022, stemming all the way through the investigation. And you've already seen one of those reckonings with the former Trooper Proctor, Mr. Michael Proctor now. And I always try to make sure I emphasize that, and I hope you all do too. But that's one little step. Then there will be some looking at the prosecutor, the district attorney in that county, and whether or not he had a hand in orchestrating and or not properly investigating and prosecuting Ms. Reed, and possibly Aiden Carney as well. Also, I think that in terms of a reckoning, there will likely be a complete overhaul for not only how just ground level investigations are performed, but also ranging all the way up through how cases are brought, how the decision making is done, how that sausage is made. Do we bring charges against this person? Do we bring this level of charges against this person? And by this person, I mean any of your loved ones in that community up there. And hopefully, perhaps a judicial overhaul. If there has been a determination that some of the decisions were biased, there needs to be some accountability there. And the accountability is all to the taxpayers. I'm not a taxpayer there, but if I were any of your viewers listening and watching saying, I pay taxes to this county or this town, I would want to make sure that only the best law enforcement were policing the streets and that there wasn't a thin blue line. So there's going to be a look back or a reckoning. And one day, I really do hope it comes to fruition, because this has been not only a financial strain, but it's been an emotional one, a psychological one. Yeah.
Look at this. Somebody is checking you out here from Barcelona, right? Go ahead, Bia.
Barcelona.
That's right.
Barcelona. Yo hablo español. Yo
también.
Look at that. And what's up? There's my homie from Franklin, Mass, where my college is. Deborah, what's up, Holmes? How are you? And so there is quite we already have interesting questions for you, but great. I want to say thank you very much for AJK for gifting 10 Calling All Beings memberships. Namaste. I really appreciate you. When you see me raise my hands up that, but my guest is speaking, that's what I'm saying is thank you, even though it's just visual in nature.
I love you guys so much. You are the most, like, the sweetest hosts, and also not only to your guests, but to your chat. It's wonderful.
Thank you. We feel honored that they have chosen to take time. They could be doing anything right now, but they have chosen to come and spend it with us. And that's an honor. So that's great. I'm very happy. This lady right here, we expect her on here shortly. This is Kate Casey. the host of Reality Life, and she is the one who interviewed the documentarian, I think, that did the Karen Reed Netflix show. So when she comes, I'm basically going to turn it over to her, because I don't feel like they have a great understanding of what's so egregious in this case, and who better to explain that to her than Nan Gallagher. So,
I'm gonna explain it to her, DJ. I'm gonna explain it to her.
yeah, I mean, I don't know if she has a sense of how bizarre this is and how out of character and out of any legal norm that any of you have ever seen. Anyone from Mark to Melanie, and probably Al, if you were having private conversations, probably Alan, David, and Eliza, and Robert Alisi or Lessie, depending upon where you're from, would say this. That they're saying this is completely out of the norm. So,
well, and I think that it being so out of the norm is I know it's what caused me. Was one of two contributing factors to what caused me to start speaking up. The other factor was the fact that one attorney in the Dallas area had donated 1 billable hour of her time in the form of a donation. And I don't recall if she donated it to the Karen Reed Defense Fund or to Turtle Boy, but I was like, oh, I guess I could do that. And then it kind of evolved in terms of donations after that. But then also the abnormalities are so striking. The contrariness to the way jurisprudence is supposed to be done. That is so notable to me, and I know to others, and even to the newest juror, former juror, who was an alternate, Victoria George. She, in a really badass move, just decided to move from a former juror on this case to a defense counsel on behalf of the defendant for whom she sat as an alternate juror. So it runs against our very mental and experiential constitution. And I got to do something. That's my mindset. And I know all of you feel the same way.
Totally.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's two questions for you already.
Ooh, okay.
That I want to get to, but I want to thank AJK for donating another 10 cab memberships. Thank you very much. We don't have a whole lot of members. I think we're like under 100 or something. So thank you very much. It was very, very kind of you. Thank you. Namaste. The other one is, okay, Cop's daughter wants to know, I want to know what Nan and Mike Crawford said that they know.
Wow. It's funny. I know we both said earlier on the Young Jerks that we know some things, and I can't remember in what context, Cop's daughter, I said that, because I happen to know a few things, which I'm not at liberty to say, but I don't know. How adorable.
This is my hiking buddy, Julia, the polar bear. Hey, polar bear.
My gosh. If that puppy is going to be on this stream, I'm not going to pay attention at all.
We'll let it go. There she goes,
no. Wow, I wish I could pick my dog up like that. My dog is 80 pounds. And I mean, at this point, she could probably pick me up. But anyway, there's just a few things that I have heard, which I always discount. When I hear things, I'm like, oh, okay, maybe that's a rumor mill. And then I've had an opportunity, Cop's daughter, to have some conversations. I don't know if what I know is what Mike Crawford knows. So I can't even validate that we both know the same things. So I'm sorry if that was in any way a dissatisfying answer. But what I have heard and have on good information is that this is going to be a completely different trial. Completely different trial.
Lord, hear our prayer. Our retired North Carolina State Highway Police, basically state trooper, he says, Nan, have you ever seen a case where the lead investigator was fired and the case proceeded? I haven't. And 100% of those pending cases are always dismissed, always. So what's your reaction to that?
Well, first, I want to say hey to you, because I know I've seen you put in chats on some of the shows I've been on. So it's great to see you. And I've heard you call in to the Young Jerks. I've heard you call into Seeking Justice, I believe, and you know your stuff. I have never had a case or seen a case where the lead investigator had been fired, at least during the pendency of the trial proceedings, which we are in, even though 2.0 didn't start yet. We're in the pendency of the trial. I have to believe that in the cases where the lead investigator has been fired, and I imagine that's not many, that the prosecutor would always decide to dismiss. I mean, it's your lead investigator. It would be the same if the medical examiner just absolutely would not agree with the prosecution's position. So right now we're in a position where the medical examiner, Dr. Scorti-Bello, it's not that she doesn't agree with the prosecution's theory in terms of cause and manner of death. She's just not able to cross that threshold of saying, yes, I can definitively say that this is the cause and this is the manner of death. She's kind of hedging on the manner of death. So they don't need to sever ties with her completely, although it seems to me that they're pretty much severing ties with her because she did not give them the manner of death that they wanted. She's only saying it's undetermined, and she's willing, as was seen in trial 1.0, to make concessions to the defense in terms of what could have been other potential causes or manners of death for John O'Keefe. So in this case, I would simply say that the fact that former Trooper Proctor or Michael Proctor was fired, and they're still not willing to dismiss the charges or to downgrade them or make this some type of more attractive plea deal for Karen, which I still would not suggest. But the fact that they won't do that just tells me that they're so locked in to their current position and they've come too far, and there's too much at risk for law enforcement and the prosecution to do it, that they're pot committed, as I say, and they're just going to move forward. But I will say, whichever side calls Trooper Proctor, former Trooper Proctor, it's going to be a very spicy testimony, whether the questions come from the prosecution to the former officer or they come from Alan Jackson or David Yannetti or any one of the team. I am here for it, and I'm really looking forward to it because he's going to be absolutely mauled on the stand.
Yeah. The thing is, I don't think there's I'm going to use the word realistic here. I don't think there's a realistic circumstance where they would dismiss the case and with that qualifier. In other words, yes, if there was a video of Karen's car where it was indisputable, clear photo of the red taillight after the supposed, faked thing happened that they say that she hit him with the vehicle. I don't think outside of that, I don't think there's any circumstance where they would dismiss the case. But tell me if I'm wrong. Is there? I don't think there's a realistic circumstance.
No, I mean, unless it suddenly becomes clear as day that, the evidence that has been discovered thus far as to the third-party culprits, who are Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and Colin Albert, or those who are, in my opinion, accessories or co-conspirators, those in the realm of Jen McCabe, Matt McCabe, Chris Albert, those who, Julie Nagel, people who clearly have shown that they were somehow possibly involved or know something. That's what evidence is showing to me. It might not show that way to a jury or to any of you, but unless that stuff gets so credibly revealed and not subject to question, this isn't going to go away until a jury finds her not guilty. And it's really unfortunate because this is not the way, in my opinion, that our system of jurisprudence in any jurisdiction should work. We should be in a position where prosecutors bring charges based on credible facts and not stretches and not junk science and not ill-equipped poorly educated accident reconstructionists. I'm referring to Trial 1.0 when I say that. It's just not the type of financial investment that any government and its judiciary and its prosecutors should be wasting their time on. I find that really insulting to the legal profession, and that's why I take it so personally.
And do you really believe that the feds on January 18th wrote a letter to both the defense and the prosecution regarding their investigation that was ongoing? And by February, they just called up Hank on the phone and say, hey, it's over. There's no way, right?
Yeah, there's no way anybody's going to convince me of that. So just, and I can't remember if I explained this to you guys the last time I was on. I might have said it on some other streams, but in my practice, so I do civil, administrative, and criminal law, and I've done it now for many, many years, almost a quarter of a century. And in that quarter of a century throughout, I have dealt with federal criminal investigative agencies, as well as state criminal investigative agencies. And many times they work hand in hand. Sometimes they don't, but many times they do. In every single one of those investigations by a federal investigating body, not once, never once have they ever, quote, closed their investigation with some type of confirmatory call, email, or letter. It has never happened in my practice. And I do that type of work a lot. So it's not like I'm saying, I've done a handful. No. In my field, which is healthcare law, which is a fancy way of saying I do everything for doctors. And there are a lot of criminal things that can happen to doctors. In my field, the federal investigating bodies are really hands-on because there's usually types of insurance fraud, monies that are being taken in by payers and Medicare, Medicaid at the state level. These investigative arms, they never tell you that they're closing out. So, it's to send some letter in January only to confirm that they're closing things out or completing things in February, it doesn't track for me. Also, I do make my clients who want closure on pending investigations, I make them put to me in writing every time. I say, put it in writing to me if you're insisting that I follow up with the Department of Justice, or you're insisting that I follow up with the Office of the Inspector General, which is another criminal federal investigating body. Because many times, from my experience, when I do that, when I have to follow up with these bodies to say, what's the status here, these agencies, they get so vindictive that I'm following up with them. And many times my inquiry is just prompting them to dust something off on their desk. So when I do follow up, invariably a week or two or a month later, I'm getting yet another request from them or getting called in for a hearing for my client. So I don't believe it. I do not believe that it is closed at this point, and someone's going to have to put a piece of paper from the feds under my nose for me to believe otherwise.
Well, that letter was published by Helena Rafferty, dated March 4th, that said it's dismissed. And I don't know about you, but it's so hard for me to believe that Chief Rafferty would say anything that wasn't true.
But that was her own letter on her letterhead.
Where's my
Nothing from
tissues?
the
I
feds.
have no tissues here. I'm sorry.
I
go ahead,
know.
Dia.
Let me
Go ahead.
get you some tissues,
Thank
DJ.
you. Thank you.
And yeah, you make a great point, because that letter, which I happen, unless there was a letter that I missed, and I tell
No.
everybody, I don't see
You
everything.
haven't.
I
No,
was
you
looking at that letter earlier. Someone had it on X.
Yes.
And I was looking at it going, wait, okay, I know I saw this a few weeks back, but this is on Canton PD letterhead.
Yes.
I could whip up something on my letterhead that says, I'm the best thing since sliced bread, give it to you, and you should not be drawing the conclusion that I'm the best thing since sliced bread. Like, I think it was done not only for the PR of it. I forget exactly what part of the timeline this was released. It was right before, I believe, the motion to dismiss was
Yes.
argued by the
Mhm.
defense. And I think it was a bit of a PR stunt. I am not in any way saying that, it's perhaps, it is possible that Chief Rafferty spoke to someone at the federal level, or Brennan spoke to someone at the federal level and was given some information. But I know from experience the information they did not get, which is we closed our investigation or it's
Right.
completed. And often there are times when agencies will complete their investigation, but that doesn't mean it's over. That means the fact finding is over. So once an
Yeah.
investigation arguably is, quote, completed, there are times, and not few and far between, when the investigation kind of completes, I guess, for a poetic licensure state. But when you take it beyond that, many times I've seen indictments follow after that.
Well, there's a legal review of what they found. I mean, that could
Right.
take months to figure out what can we charge and who can we tie to what.
That's right. So, it's one of those things like, don't believe it until you know with certainty. And there's a reason why the feds have such a high conviction rate. There is. And there is also a significant reason why the feds took great lengths to investigate kind of all of the different tentacles of this matter, ranging from, I'm surmising, the Karen Reed case, the accident. Then they had hired ARCA. They looked at phone records. They looked at cell data. They looked at computer records. From everything I recall seeing was handed over to them. Then they probably, I'm not sure, but they probably also looked into any perceivable connection with Birchmore, the Sandra Birchmore case,
Yes.
possibly the Just en Route case. I don't know any of the last two things to be true, but I have to believe because of some overlap, they were probably looking at trends. And when there are trends, that's where federal agencies and investigative criminal bodies do focus interest, because they want to see if there is this level of corruption that would pique their interest. Because normally a state is sovereign. It can do what it wants. How it operates is normally not of the business of the federal government. But when there's patterns and there's prosecutorial overreach and clear, in my opinion, or at least questionable in the Fed's opinion, evidence of corruption, they're all over it. So I just don't believe it. I don't.
I agree. And let me first of all, let me thank the traveler for $5. But I'll read this in the accent that I was working on last night with Bia.
I want to hear it.
It was Winston Churchill. Did we see the latest Pedro letter that just dropped? So did you?
Was there another? Wait, is there another Bedro letter that dropped like today?
Yeah.
I
And
have
there's-
not seen it.
Yeah. So
Oh
if,
no.
if anybody has the details of that or wants to let us know during the show, I can put up the cab call-in number if
Yeah,
you'd like
guys.
to call in.
I've been
Oh, Aiden just released it 40 minutes ago.
okay.
It's
Now I
dated
don't
March
feel so bad.
29th. Yeah,
Okay.
no. I can send it to you, DJ, on Twitter.
Thank you so much.
You're
Thank you,
welcome.
ma'am.
I'm on it.
Appreciate it. Love
On it.
I had the opportunity to meet Mark Betterow in person when I went up to visit. He's fantastic.
He
Tell
is.
us about
I
that.
did too.
Tell us
Yeah.
about, okay, this is one of the things I wanted to ask you when we said, hey, we're gonna book, Bia's like, you gotta book Nan again. I'm like, yeah, we gotta book her on here.
And we
What
booked
was
this a ways back. Like I think I might have even been in Boston when we booked it, or
Right.
the Boston area.
Yes. What was it like? What were the conversations like? And we're not asking for details that have to do with legalities and things
You
that
want to
And
stay
they went to
awake.
dinner. They
Yes.
went to dinner together too.
Yeah. So, well, I always want to preface when I mention meeting him and my conversation with him, and Will the Glarer was there as well. So I want to thank Will for presenting me with that wonderful opportunity to meet him. But I always want to preface by saying Mark Betterow did not discuss anything involving Aidan Carney with me, or anything involving, any particularities that might have been within his knowledge base concerning Karen Reed, as he was poised to be, hopefully at that point, appointed as pro hoc vice, which ended up getting denied a few days after I met him, which is a ridiculous ruling, and I think the judge was wrong. But we did have a great dinner. We went to Smith and Walensky in Boston, and I mean, the steaks there, God, like, they're just unbelievable. I should probably eat there more often just to build more muscle from all the protein. And I know the Glarer thought like his steak was perfectly cooked, but Mark was so much fun. He's very, very funny, very snarky, makes great eye contact. He also had a few drinks, as did Will. Like I was drinking, like, I think one cocktail and a bunch of ginger ales, but the conversation between two lawyers who do criminal defense work, who are from the cold, dark streets of Manhattan, him more than me. Yeah, like we were like head to head at that table, kind of talking this case. And all of the issues we see with it, because as I started out at the top of your hour, I'm like, this stuff is so like crazy to lawyers who know how it's supposed to work. So at some point, I think Will was sitting there kind of going, I'm gonna let you guys talk. And probably some of what we were saying was flying over his head. But Mark was really a pleasure. I told him, I said, we got to go out for some dirty water dogs, which are hot dogs from a street cart in Manhattan.
Yes.
And I'm
red
sure
onions.
we will.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah. And then also I was a little surprised because Betterow was like, they were shutting down the restaurant. I forget what time it was, but he was like, yeah, let's go get another cocktail. I don't know how people can stay up as late as they stay up. When I went to visit there, it's unbelievable. And normally I would say, but yeah, he's a New Yorker, but he's originally from there. So I am convinced there is something baked into the DNA up in Massachusetts that keeps people awake late at night. I had
It's
fun.
all
but
you awesome visitors. That's what keeps us awake.
When the company's good, you don't want it to end, Nan. I mean,
Exactly.
that's the bottom line here.
Thank
So,
you. By
yeah.
the time I got home, though, it literally took me 4 days to recover. Yeah, easily 4 days.
Late nights, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But so it was compelling conversation, and you guys could bounce ideas off each other, and you might have had some ideas for him about that he hadn't thought of, and vice versa, etc.
Yeah. It
Okay.
was very collaborative. And also we gave which I won't share, but we kind of gave our opinions on who we feel are some of the most useful tools to just the Free Karen Reed movement on X, and on these streams and chats. And I'm not referring to content creators when I say that,
Right.
but people we see in the chats, because
Yes.
I'm normally a chat surfer. And we had a lot of similar opinions about that. He's a great guy.
Yeah, that's our opinion too. We've got him coming back shortly. He and brother counsel that they didn't get to talk last time, so we're going to get him to talk this time,
Nice.
because we didn't know that Mark was joining the defense team. So
Oh yeah, that's right. He
Yeah.
was supposed to join us, and I think we
Yes.
had Olivia Nile or
Yes.
Lambo join instead. God, that
Ye-
seems like forever ago.
It does. In
It
Karen
does.
Reed land, it was like 6 months ago.
Yeah, because I did my first. I was looking back. I think I did my first stream with the Young Jerks in like the last week of January, and it's almost the end of March now. It feels like a million years. And I will be scaling back my streaming in the coming weeks just because I think I've hit all the creators and I think people have heard enough from Nan Gallagher. I'm probably going to be doing more tweeting and posting on Facebook, social media, occasionally popping into Seeking Justice with Tom CPU and Boston Mike.
Well, I have to say, as the trial starts, we're all going to need a breakdown, and we want to hear what you have to say. So hopefully you'll come back and visit, because that's when it gets real. Now we're kind of rehashing things from 1.0. When 2.0 starts, we're going to need that law tuber type of tell us what we just watched all day and tell us that it's nonsense.
So I'm going to tell everybody, always feel free to ask. Like if it feels right and works, I'm happy to. And I love DJ, like DJ and you both like reached out to me a few weeks ago, and I'm like,
Yes,
this
ma'am.
date would work. And thank you so much for holding it for me. And
Oh, yeah.
I do feel, I don't want to say badly. I feel a lot of sensitivity to the Free Karen Read supporters who have a lot of questions about what just happened, or I'm worried about this. This just got filed. What does this mean? And so many times it's nothing to worry about. So I'm a mommy, I want to my job is to calm people. And I feel like, hey, if I can tell you this is nothing and you feel a little better about it, great. And then there's times where I say, everyone should be worried about that. Or, even yesterday, Aidan Carney had a hearing before a different judge on the Karen Read case with regard to the phone extractions that the Commonwealth, not Brennan of the Commonwealth, but the other kind of arm of the Commonwealth, special appointed prosecutor, Cosgrove has.
Yes. Yeah.
And, in that hearing, a lot of people were worried about it because they thought, oh my God, there's an emergency hearing. And I'm like, no. It's really a status hearing. Don't worry about it. It's not, I don't know what's going to be discussed, but I can tell you it's not as bad as you think. And some people felt better when they heard that. And then during the hearing, the judge essentially spanked Cosgrove and Brennan, which I was very happy to hear and watch, as I'm sure. Yeah, I'm sure that other people were as well. Actually, that's the way judges are supposed to work. That's this kind of unbiased, both sides are accountable, no matter which side it is. That's what we're used to seeing.
Nan, are you saying that you're not supposed to just like pick a side that you don't like and treat them poorly, and then the other side you're really nice to? Is that how it's supposed to go?
Yes,
really?
that is the way it's supposed to go. So
that's what a judge is supposed to, like, justice is blind and really?
Yeah, like what is deaf, dumb, and blind or whatever. Yeah, it's definitely something to expect. I expect it when I'm before judges, and I've been in the hot seat. I was happy to see it. And in that regard, like, I think a lot of people in the Free Karen Read and the Free Turtle Boy movements, they felt comforted not only by the fact that Brennan and Cosgrove were dished it by Judge Adam Sisitsky, but also that, okay, this is a refreshing breeze of or breath of fresh air, because look, a judge actually called balls and strikes here, and it wasn't just, oh my God, he's going to deny this, or he's going to award all of these, expand his ruling to include communications between Aidan and Karen's attorneys. So it's the way it's supposed to work. It's supposed to be fair. And when it's not fair, I think everybody, whether you're a lawyer or not, or a content creator or not, we get frustrated. So I'm hopeful that I do believe that Judge Bev follows the kind of social media aspects of this case, maybe not as assiduously as others do, but I'm hoping that she starts to curb some apparent bias that is just so present. I hope that changes. We'll see.
I'm sorry that I don't see that happening. I think when she grants a motion in their favor, what were we talking about the other night, Bia? She granted one in their favor, and it's like she'll go, okay, duck, duck, goose. And like, so she'll give them something that's kind of not very impactful or groundbreaking, just to say that she ruled one motion in their favor, and then she'll go back to approving other inappropriate motions or ruling against them. And I think
Yeah.
Microdots once did a breakdown of this. One second, real quick. I just want to say thank you to the cat lady. The cat lady is one of our new mods. She's awesome. And she has gifted 30 memberships. So namaste,
Aw.
cat lady. We appreciate you. And then we will get, if you have a question for Nan Gallagher, please put like some sort of a question mark so we know it. If you don't like to type in all caps, put like a question mark at the beginning, something like that, because we want to get her to answer your questions before we get out of here tonight.
Yeah.
So, yes, ma'am, you were going to say.
To answer your questions, or just try to make them stand out as best as possible.
Yes.
And so many people have questions, and then questions stemming from answers that they hear. So yeah, it's a really great job you guys do trying to bring people together to try to make them more aware of this stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, that's basically, what we're trying to do is we are not going to leave Karen alone. Because people in other communities, I've covered other genres, obviously, and people have asked me, and I said, we're going to stay on this case. I'm going to go to Massachusetts again, just like you did. Just just want to make sure Elon's not going to fire me, and I'm going to book another trip to Massachusetts, and support the movement, and I'll stand out, and I'll do another meal of food and all that stuff. So I wish we had known you when we did that meal of food.
When was that? When
January 12th.
Yeah.
January 12th?
Yes.
Yep.
We had like 100 people there.
And it's so interesting because I was clearly writing chats, throughout. But when you write, what I wasn't doing from 2023 to 2025 was making sure I never missed a show of anybody. Now I try to never miss a show of anybody in chats. And I've tried to, when asked, to come on the different creators just to help them understand or frame their mindsets. But yeah, so I'm sure there was plenty of things like that, DJ or Bia, like when you guys did the meal of food. I didn't happen to pick that up whatsoever just from writing chats, but I will moving forward.
Yeah, well, we're going to make sure now that we know you, we can invite you. But yeah, it was really good. There were people that felt left out because basically Karen did a fundraiser and she couldn't invite everybody for the room that she had, but she was trying to make money for her defense fund, obviously, which is very understandable. And by the way, the Karen Reed Defense Fund is pinned to the top of the chat. So if you're so inclined, please donate. And so therefore, when people were aggrieved, we had already planned our meal of food for about 20. So after we found out people were kind of bummed out, we said, okay, well, instead of just 20, I mean, everyone was always invited anyway. We didn't have we didn't say, oh, only these people can come, but we just started off with a tacit list. So then we just said, okay, everyone in the community, you are invited. This is where we're going to be. This is the time. This is the place. So just come there and book a table and we're going to hang out. And we had Aiden and Meredith. We had Jason. We had Brian, LTL, Mazza, Britt came. So, and then myself and Bia. So, and then just tons of people showed up. I got to spend time with.
There was no streaming. It was just conversation and, it was nice. Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, that's great. It must have been cold then. You said January.
It was.
Yeah.
Yes. It was cold.
It was cold when I went up there. So when I was up there, I guess it was maybe March 3rd or so through the 6th, something like that. It was cold.
Oh,
so
I think we have a number.
I'm planning to go up in sometime in April, and hopefully it's a little milder.
It should
somebody
be
on air. I don't know if somebody's on air or not.
Let's see.
It says unknown. That could be bad. All right, let me hang up on it. I don't know who that was. So we do have questions for you though. So let's see what we can get to. Our police. So here's one. We're gonna tag this one from Christina Maria. Help me out here.
Okay.
D-O-double-B-A.
You want me to read?
Oh, Java. Yeah. If you got one. Oh yeah, go ahead. You can go ahead and
Oh,
read
are you
this one.
asking me to read it? I'm sorry.
Sure, absolutely. Go ahead. Yes, please.
If the judge misquotes facts or evidence, i.e. the confusion between polycarbonate and glass, is there any recourse?
If the judge misquotes it, so, the recourse would be for the attorneys at the time that it happens, the misquoting happens, to respectfully correct the judge. Depends on what's being misquoted. This is an important thing to quote properly because there is a big difference, especially in this case, between polycarbonate and glass. When you have a alleged broken taillight and at least one, possibly two tumbler or cocktail glasses that may or may not have left the bar establishment. So it's really to just respectfully correct the judge. I'd have to know a little bit more as to the context there in limine pickets, where the judge would have misquoted it. But I believe I heard witnesses interchanging glass and taillight, or taillight pieces and glass, in questions. And I think I heard that on both sides. I think I heard the defense doing it and the prosecution doing it, which makes for a little bit of a confusing factual scenario for a jury. So if I can give any advice to the attorneys for the defense, I don't like to give advice to the Commonwealth other than dismiss this case and dismiss the cases against Aiden. If I can give any advice to the Karen Reed defense team, it would just be to make sure that you're very nicely and in a likable way being very consistent with the terminology of polycarbonate versus glass, or tail light versus glass, in what context, and correct anyone or object to any question where that is used incorrectly. Yeah.
And I think with a fair degree of confidence that polycarbonate that the tail light lens is made out of would not have shattered in that manner, hitting John's arm. Probably not hitting him center mass. It would not have broken in that manner. So that they're going to need someone who's an automotive expert in plastics. Someone actually reached out to me that had a degree from Massachusetts, that had a degree in that type of science that produces plastics. And he never answered me back, though. He never came on the show, but I would have loved to have had one. This one is from Mary Malaki. I truly enjoy Attorney Nan Gallagher's candor and humor as we learn so much from her live stream visits. She's a treasure. Thank you very much, Nan Gallagher.
Thank you, Mary. And I love it because DJ gets to do the accents. It's always so much fun. I think, though, it's important to be funny. Like, even though none of this is funny, it's like, can we find some level of humor or entertainment as you guys all who are boots on the ground? And I mean that in not just the standing outside of the courthouse way, but the people who are dedicated to the chats, and the people who don't stand out at the courthouse every day, but are from the community. You have to, in my opinion, find some ways to make light of this. And I'm sure in some ways, I don't know this, but I really have to believe even Karen and her family hopefully do that. They find joy amongst these horrible set of really prolonged, just horrible facts. Their life has just been ruined. It's been ruined, and I don't think it's recoverable for them. So I did say that, just so you know, I did have a chance to speak to Karen and her family. They were the ones that had invited me to come to Massachusetts when I did, and to go to court with them, which that was very sweet of them to do. And I was like, are you guys sure? I still don't understand. But when they asked me, I I remember during that call, I think it was that particular night or maybe a couple nights later, I was supposed to be on the Glarers program, and I like apologized to them. I said, I'm going to be on his program, and I know we laugh a little bit about some of these stupid things that are going on, and I mean no disrespect to you. And they kind of laughed. They're like, we understand.
Yeah.
So they're like really down to earth. I can't say I know them very well, but I knew enough to apologize for making light of some things, and they were really friendly and receptive when I said that, and thought that my apology was ridiculous.
Yeah, I've never met them, but they just seem like very, very, as you said, down to earth is about as well as very genuine people. That there's no pretense about them.
Yeah.
So,
Oh, and I see this question here. This is like all caps. So
yes.
I have to say, I can read this without my glasses, which is like completely unbelievable to me. But the question that Ken Hathaway has in terms of, if the prosecutor is going to really push it with the ARCA experts, can they bring their own lawyers in? He's called them liars. Yes, they can. In fact, I don't know how much Judge Bev would allow lawyers for witnesses to have a role in proceedings. But I will say, drawing upon prior experience, she did allow the lawyer for Brian Higgins to kind of step in and with outside of the presence of the jury and to kind of say, no, everything's fine, or I've talked to my client. So I think she was very respectful and deferential to the fact that a lawyer for a witness was present. But yeah, I have served in that capacity where my client has been a fact witness or an expert witness. And in fact, he was an expert witness on a particular case. He was getting bullied by the plaintiff's attorney, the litigant's attorney, for opinions he had. And this litigant was going after my client's license because he disagreed with his opinions. He went after my client's board certification as a medical doctor because he didn't like the opinions. And that's why my client retained me. He's like, I feel like I'm serving as an expert, but I'm on the defensive here. What's going on? And I had to come to trial with him it was only one day. He was testifying one day. And that judge allowed me to protect his rights. Like I was going to protect my client who was answering questions that were being asked by someone else to make sure that my client wasn't being trampled upon. So yes, Ken, I definitely think if Hanky wants to push it with ARCA, they should come in with their own attorneys. And that is really risky if Hank wants to do that. If he wants to push it and try to smear or besmirch these experts so much who were sound enough to be engaged by the federal government and who, from what I understand, render expert opinions for the military. And I believe I heard NASA, although I'm not.
And hockey too.
And hockey.
Hockey,
Maybe not
NHL,
NASA.
yeah.
I'm not. But yeah, if they're nationally regarded experts and he wants to try to smear them, that can backfire in front of a jury, whether there's an attorney who comes in for them or not. If you try to make someone who's been accepted in courts look like an idiot, you make yourself look like an idiot if you don't do it properly. So,
Like he did to Dr. Russell, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was completely. Oh, and look, Kimberly, every once in a while I look at the chat. Kimberly is saying, yes, NASA. See, I must have heard it right.
You got it right, Dan.
Yeah.
Now I'm doing Scottish.
Well, the
I
only
changed
reason
over from Irish, lads. Sorry.
the only reason I noticed it is because NASA was all caps. So, but yeah, I definitely think he should think twice before he does that, because someone like Dr. Marie Russell, who is, as I've said before, and others have too, the most uniquely qualified expert on a case I've ever encountered, she dished it back to him. And you never want an expert to say back to you in front of a jury, I'm a little offended by what you're asking me right now.
Yes.
And in her scenario, she is a more seasoned expert. She's been practicing and working in her fields for many decades. You can come off as like bullying.
Bullying.
Yeah, doesn't always track well with a jury. And one little thing like that is enough to really set jurors' minds set. So you have to kind of choose your battles if you're going to go that route.
And thank you for the $5, Maddie Malaki. I greatly appreciate it. Oh, that one didn't come off so well. All right, I got to work on my Scottish. All right, so this one right here. Nan, with as much as the Commonwealth seems desperate to get a guilty verdict, what are the chances the judge would overrule a jury verdict? You're awesome, Nan. Exclamation point.
So the chances a judge would overrule a jury verdict. Thank you so much, by the way, Shyla Janelle. What a pretty handle.
Totally.
So it doesn't work that way. If a verdict comes in, this judge wouldn't overrule it. So, there's an opportunity at the close of the Commonwealth's case. The Commonwealth goes first. And when they rest at the end of the presentation of their case, an application can and should be made by the defense to move for dismissal for failure to establish all of the elements of the crimes and enough reasonable doubt, et cetera. And it is that decision before the defense has a chance to give their turn, where a judge could decide on a motion to dismiss at the close of the Commonwealth's case to dismiss all of the charges. I think that this judge will not do that. Another judge might have. So, but if a jury verdict comes in, this judge, meaning Judge Beverly Cannoni, would not do that. She can't do that. The only remedy available to the defendant, Karen, at that time would be to file a motion for an appeal. Like she'd have to file for an appeal, a post-conviction appeal. I hope that answers your question. Yeah. You're awesome too.
We've got a lot of questions here to get to. Why is there nothing that can be done with their obvious judge bias? And basically, I think you guys have said on multiple shows, there is not a remedy at this level below the appellate level for this.
That's right. And, some people have been taking to, pardon my dog.
That's awesome. We love dogs.
My dog wants to file a complaint against.
Yes.
Yes.
But anyway, there's been a push I've seen on social media to file complaints and register bad reviews for this judge. I don't condone that. I don't think that's advisable for anyone to do. At the appellate level, if it's found that Judge Cannoni has made biased rulings or rulings that are beyond her discretionary authority, then they can, that appellate court or a higher appellate court can overrule her decisions. They could give Karen a new trial. They could dismiss the charges outright. They could reverse the conviction. That's the place to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, she will have been and I don't even, like I said, I've said before, I don't even think there's a chance they have enough evidence to convict her. So I don't think that's happening. I think Hank was hired for the hung jury. That was the reason why they brought him in, because they know they don't have any evidence to convict her, but they can just try to bankrupt her more, which is even, in a way, it's even more evil because they're just trying to injure her financially and emotionally and reputationally, knowing that they can't actually earn a conviction.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. That makes sense. You guys really provide a lot of thoughtful analysis to this case. I very much like that when I listen to your streams, and it's very interesting to hear all of the different perspectives on it. So not every one of the Free Karen Read supporters all have the same views on everything. Not everything is kind of cookie cutter, but I really do think you've made a good point there.
This is good because most people are throwing items of food at their screen when I'm on air. So this is really a very pleasant change. So
there you go.
Yeah. So Java time, you want to read this one, D-O-double-B-A?
Sure.
Okay.
If you were cross-examining Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, and Colin, what is one question you'd ask each of them as part of the third-party culprit defense?
Oh my God, Java
Oh,
time.
yeah, let's get it, man. Let's get that.
That's
applause
a
track.
good one.
Awesome. Oh,
My-
I hit pause. There it goes. Sorry, there it goes.
And my questions probably, like, no one get their hopes up. I would be asking questions that you guys all might ask yourselves too. But in terms of Brian Albert, the one question I would ask him in terms of the third party culprit defense, it's two. I'm going to say two for him. The first one would be why didn't you come out of the house that night? Why did you, and I have my theories. I think we all do. But why didn't you come out of the house once he had to have heard, he had to have known. I don't believe that he didn't know what was going on. But once you knew what was going on, once your sister-in-law came into that house, why didn't you come out? And I think it's very telling that he did not. I would also want to ask Brian Albert if I understand the waterfall video properly. He was the one who stopped Higgins, right? Isn't he the one that he's not the one that stopped Higgins?
That was
I think it
Chris.
Chris.
That
See,
was Chris.
all of these
They're
bald
all, yeah.
Irish guys.
He's the one on the select board, Chris Albert.
Well, who else was on that? Again, vision impaired. That was Higgins in the middle. Chris is the one who grabbed his arm.
Brian was like behind him, I believe.
Kind of to the left of him.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
That would, but by the way, the grabbing of the arm with the peacocking that was going on, I would want to ask Chris Albert that. So I know that's not part of this question.
That's good. Yeah.
As far as Higgins is concerned, I really would need to drill down more on the getting rid of his phone, the self curation of text messages. He made himself out to sound like he was being charitable and helpful by picking and choosing a small subset of text messages with Karen to help the investigation. Meanwhile, what should have been done was to hand over your phone, and then the discarding of the phone on the wake of news breaking that there was going to be an order entered to procure his phone, and how he discarded his phone. It just, nobody does that.
Right.
So I would want to pursue that. And I would probably also want to, if I were a female asking him questions, I would want to probe a little bit in terms of like how he thought he had a snowball's chance in hell with that woman. Like, I would want to razz him a little bit. Like, you thought she was into you? Tell me why. And start embarrassing him as a female, because, we all have our tools as lawyers. As a female, if I were in that courtroom, I'd want to shame him a little bit on the whole, what were you doing with her? Or what were you communicating with her about? But like, he's, John O'Keefe there in the house, and like, what's going on here? And then as far as Colin Albert, I think that the whole issue of when he was in the house, when he left, like that little window when Allie allegedly picked him up, and the text communications, which I think were fudged between the two, self-curated and suspicious to me, then also leading to where did you go after that? And why did you not communicate with her via text for weeks and weeks and weeks later? Now, I understand there's other text modalities, platforms, etc., but I'd want to drill down more on that.
And can I add one thing to that too, in regards to Higgins' phone? The thing is that not everybody in the house had to turn over their phone. So he just went to voluntarily do this so that the fix was in. And then on top of that, he so he was just being nice, because they didn't get everybody's phone who was in that house. So why was, out of all of them, he was going to be the one whose phone they were going to, so he had to do it backwards and say, this is what I want to give you. And he had the perfect chance to be her hero that day when she sent him a text saying John died, and he didn't. So that goes to show you right then and there that he was just in with the fix.
I agree. That's very important too. Like that enough, just that as to Higgins is enough for reasonable doubt. And that is why it's very important, in my opinion, for there to be allowed a third party culprit defense, which that decision is still pending by Judge Cannoni. But out of all, I think we can all agree, out of all of the third party culprits, and out of all of those additional kind of accessories or co-conspirators that I was mentioning before, Higgins had all of the reasons in the world. He had the motive, which doesn't need to be proven for these charges to stick. But he had the motive. He had the communications with her. He had not only motive, but just the receipts with her. He's the one who had some type of, I'm going to call it romantic, although I don't believe it was in any way romantic for Karen, but he had the romantic dalliance with her, which goes beyond motive. It's more of a, what was he hiding? Like, what kind of guy is he? So beyond motive, if you're going to do that, you know she's got a boyfriend, like, and the boyfriend is the custodian and caregiver of children of family members who have passed. What kind of guy are you? And the jury should be able to draw inferences from that. Yeah.
I have some thank yous I've got to hit because these people have donated. Thank you, Ken Hathaway from Nottingham, England. And thank you, the cat lady. Again, you're so awesome, ma'am. And we're so lucky to have you as part of our team here in Calling All Beings. And this, is this a cat something? Randall? Is that what that says? I might need me glasses now and I can't see.
Ramble? R-A-N-B-A-L?
Cat Randall.
Oh,
Ramble.
No, it's a B.
I think you're right. Ramble.
Yeah.
Thank you. See, me and Bia both was
Ramble?
getting
I can't read that font.
Yep. Thank you so much for 5 memberships. Thank you. Sherry Dizzle made it in. I knew she was going to be a little late. She messaged me right before we started. Thank you, Sherry Dizzle, for 20 memberships. Love, namaste. We thank Mary Malaki. Goodness sakes. And we've got to thank Tammy Mac. She's like, I'm both. I'm Scottish and Irish, for God's sakes. Thank you very much for 5 memberships. And then AJK, another 10. You are like our hero of Calling All Beings. I don't know how many that is tonight, but it must be like 30 or 40. Thank you very much. Namaste. You guys are so cool.
A lot of memberships. That's good for you guys.
It is. It's pretty cool. I think last week I was like, I think we have like 48 members. We didn't have very many. So that's pretty awesome. This one right here. Nan, how can the Commonwealth have one theory with Trooper Paul in 1.0 and another expert in 2.0? How is that legal to change their theory?
That's a really good question, because I often thought that myself when I was new at practicing criminal defense work. The Commonwealth is allowed to change its theory. It shouldn't. And I think it doesn't track well, because if you're going to commit people in one, you hope you only have one trial, but if you're going to commit people to testimony in the trial, which ends up being the first trial of hopefully only 2 trials, you can mess things up and make it very confusing for the second trial that you hope never happens. But they are allowed to change their theory. What that does, though, is signal to all of you and all of those watching and all of the defense team that they don't have credibility. They, meaning the Commonwealth. If they first think it was, John standing a certain way and then gets hit and does a pirouette and falls back and smacks his head, then and I don't know what their new theory is, if that came out, I completely missed that because we don't see the expert reports. But if they're going to come out with something different in terms of how that accident transpired, or, okay, really the car didn't back up at this many miles per hour for this many feet, and it didn't hit him this way, it hit him that way, then the defense knows that
They're
full of,
grasping.
they're full of what. They're grasping. And it really means that their opinions are hollow, and that two of the Commonwealth's own experts are in disagreement, which is, grounds for cross-examination. They can say to the new, is it Welcher, Judd, whoever the new reconstructionist is,
Right.
they can say to him, well, are you aware that Trooper Paul reached these different conclusions? If there's a difference, in it previously, yes, I'm aware. Well, why would you disagree with him? He was there at some point being spoken to by an inanimate crime scene. But they have the ability to cross-examine the new accident reconstructionist on the differences between the two different opinions. But they can do it. They're allowed to change their theory. It just doesn't look good for them.
Nan, can we also say that if reasonable doubt were a pie, this would be, in closing, a huge slice of that pie? You know that guy at Thanksgiving that goes and you're like, wow, he makes that first slice, and then the second one is like way over there, and it's almost like a third of the pie?
Yeah.
That is huge reasonable doubt on the prosecution's theory, which is what they're going to argue this time. They have to.
And now they're bringing in somebody to say the ground was hard as a rock.
I mean,
exactly.
Seriously.
And let me see. I think the ground was hard that night. How do you know that?
I don't see how that is a credible conclusion that Mr. Gilman I don't know if he's a doctor. I'm a doctor of meteorology. I don't know if he's a doctor, but I don't know how Mr. Gilman can reach that type of conclusion. I think that's a reach. If they're going to try to say that a contra coup type of injury was caused by that, that's a reach. And I would expect the defense to fully explore that with the neurosurgeon who has been permitted to testify kind of in place of the medical examiner. Asking him, because he's a neurosurgeon, he's probably treated those types of injuries. So they should fully explore that.
And I have 2 words.
Yes, ma'am.
Do it.
Do it.
Do it. Like my shirt says, do it.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
It says, do it, AJ. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm wearing my Keep Showing Up shirt. Someone sent me this. It's my favorite color. I was everyone's so sweet. They send me things. But they keep it really simple. They either send me funny shirts or like some light little trinkets, or I get boxes of O's cereal, which I told Auntie Deb a few weeks ago that I really love. And they don't sell it down here in the stores. So I have boxes and boxes of O's, and I love them.
Nan, since we got a heart from Swiss Miss, during any of your trips overseas, had you learned how to yodel at all? Have you been to Switzerland?
Me? No. I've only been to I'm sorry. I don't even think I would be good at yodeling. I've been only to South America is the only place I would think is remotely considered overseas. And it's probably not, because we consider that to be Europe.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
I mean,
I guess.
Yeah, no, I've not. I guess I eat yodels. I like yodels, the chocolatey treat, but no, I don't know how to yodel.
Okay. So even the yodeler, hee-hoo, I think that's the... I was way off key with that.
I like Swiss Miss hot chocolate.
Yes.
I like that brand hot chocolate, definitely.
As do I. Let's see what we have here. Please tell everyone was sure to mention Nicole Albert's obsession with cleaning. Very suspicious. I think they expected the house to be searched. Yeah, I mean, who the hell is cleaning in the middle of the night like that? So yeah, I don't even think Bia cleans in the middle of the night.
I know. I was going to say, I love to clean, but not in the middle of the night.
No.
For me, it's the fact that they mentioned it. I think there were 3 witnesses, if I recall, who mentioned cleaning. And it was like Nicole Albert, Brian Albert Jr., and I want to say it was one other who I can't recall. The fact that they felt in a murder trial that the reference to cleaning was in any way important makes me think, okay. In case, for example, the house they were cleaning up, or the house was searched, or interviews were being taken place there, in the coming hours, if the house smelled like bleach, anything like that. I'm not an investigator, but I think the fact that they mentioned her obsessive cleaning is enough for me to ask more questions about it. And that's something I would be probing those witnesses on, Nicole Albert, Brian Albert Jr., and if there was a third, on that very issue, because I find it interesting.
I think the third person was Jen McCabe when she was describing her sister as.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it was Jen. You have a better memory of this, Bia, than I do.
Yeah.
I also think there's something there about the whole "It's Raining Men" song that seems to have been like, who would have thought "It's Raining Men" would become like an important little side road on a murder trial. But I think there's something off about that as well. It just doesn't flow. It's kind of like the old games. You ever play that game, like which of these things is not like the other, or find the thing that doesn't match the rest of the picture? That to me is not matching. And I have to believe, although I don't have any knowledge on this subject, that people who read body language and assess people's words and mannerisms, they might say these little irrelevant facts are telling. I bet you they would say that.
The number 3 comes into my mind as well, and that is there was 3 liters of blood that are unaccounted for in the lawn, which means they're inside the house. And every CSI guy, especially we haven't heard from our New York cops guys in a while, because I believe not Ed, but the other gentleman, Duty Ron, I believe was battling cancer. Bless him.
God bless him.
But Ed would have said, "Oh, I would have had a field day." Kate Casey is asking, I'm still on. She's just pulling back in. I'll just tell her. Yep, we're here, Kate Casey.
Yeah.
Okay. And so they would have found that blood. They could have bleached from now. And I think Ed said that as much. He said that on their show. You can bleach, you can try to clean it up. You're not going to get it all, and we're going to find it.
Yeah, and I also believe that like no normal average household would be prepared for the exsanguination of 3 liters of blood. Like if I went out in my home right now and there was a horrible accident, I love to clean. I've got a lot of cleaning supplies. I think I'd be challenged cleaning up that much blood. So if this was, as I think it was, an accident that they should have done the right thing and taken honorable steps to report it and accept any consequences that came then. If it really was unplanned, then they likely wouldn't have had proper cleaning supplies, in my opinion.
Or enough Bounty paper towels.
Right.
Oh, you're not going to, like, from what Ed says, that the splatter and things like that, you're just not going to get it all. You're not going to get it all out of the carpet. If they had carpet down in the basement, which they did have carpet because they had. So that would be the other thing. Hey, Brian, what does it made you remove that carpet? And so I would have asked him like a 3-in-1. You removed the carpet, and then you sold the house. That was your childhood home. I'm really wondering if who going into retirement sells a paid off house, $60,000 under market value, and then has to go buy a house. Nobody does that. When that's the house Brian grew up in. You already know that.
Yeah.
So surely it had to have been paid off by then. Why would you want to get rid of that house? Like, nobody does that.
I agree. And I don't know the ages of all of his children. I don't even know the number of all of his children. Doesn't he have like 5 kids?
I don't know. Maybe Scotty or actually Dennis Sweeney or Scotty in the chat can let us know. And then if you see it pop up.
Well, here's something that I had just popped into my mind a few months back when I had, little things pop in from time to time. And I was like, 5 kids. BA has 5. Okay. So I don't know all of their ages, but when these little facts pop into my head, I say to myself, like, okay, some of these kids are grown, or maybe all of them are. But if you're post pandemic. Okay, so now we're 2022. The market was thriving. The real estate market, at least in my area, and I have to believe nationally, was thriving, but probably up in that area as well. And if you have children who are grown and some or all of them are in relationships, and now, as you said, DJ, like he sells this house only to buy another house, which is what I had heard as well.
Yes, you don't do that.
You know, I could understand if they said, okay, we're downsizing, let's get a little townhouse or a condo. But if you buy another house, that doesn't track to me. If you have grown kids, many times you sell your home to your child. So if they're going to be starting out into marriages and relationships, maybe you sell your house to your child. I recognize what I'm telling you right now is just complete speculation on my part. It's like a little fact that shows me there was a cover up here down to
they're disassociating themselves with the dog, with the house,
the phone,
you know. So
let's bring in Kate Casey because she's backstage right here. So folks, this young lady right here is the host of Reality Life with Kate Casey. She is a phenomenal individual. Her own life story blew me away. As another compelling story on her channel. She interviews reality TV stars, showrunners, directors, documentarians. She recently interviewed a documentarian that covered the Karen Reed case. And she's been my friend for several years and an interviewer who is phenomenal, who I admire in this business, one of the people that I look at to try to model myself after. So party people, put your hands together for my homegirl, Kate Casey!
That's way too nice. I'm like, oh.
Hi, Kate.
Hi. I feel like a ding-a-ling compared to your guests who like are so up to date on this case. I mean, I'm familiar with it because I covered it the first trial, but I by no means am like a total expert on this case. I find what's most fascinating is the fact that even at this point in time, you have two camps of people that are absolutely sure of their own opinion. And I wondered why you think that is, that people still to this day are so divided with as much information that is out in the ether. Why are people so strong in their points of view?
Wow. I mean, but do you want me to answer that, Kate?
Yeah,
it's so nice to meet you, but I'm sure even DJ and Bia have their own answers to that.
Well, let me set the table for what's about to happen here. We are turning this over to Kate. I want to get her questions in there for Nan so she can get a sense of exactly. She just framed it up beautifully right there. So Bia and I are stepping aside. Please take it away, Kate and Nan.
Oh, okay. All right. So you guys are just voyeurs. All right. Correct. Well, it's very nice to meet you, Kate.
You too.
So at this point in time, why I think both sides are so polar opposite and divided is probably because of the continuing revelation of more and more evidence that has come out, even post first trial. So since that first trial, there has been late productions of additional videos that are arguably exculpatory to Karen. There's new video that was produced of one of the alleged third-party culprits on the phone in the middle of the night at the outside of the police station where he previously testified that he didn't talk to anyone that night. There's evidence being revealed that I'm going to get this wrong. I think he's a Lieutenant Fanning, had a role of oversight, the commander to oversee this jury. Meanwhile, he had connections with the investigating lead investigator, former Trooper Proctor. So why this Lieutenant Fanning had any oversight whatsoever, whether he had firsthand contact with the jury or not, but that's come to light. He was involved with some of the text messaging of that former investigator Proctor that were salacious and inappropriate in nature. So this Fanning, who has also had ties, I believe, to the Sandra Birchmore case, although I might be wrong, that's a tangential case in that geographic zone, which is also problematic. If you don't know anything about that case, Kate,
I'm familiar with it.
Good. Yeah, I was going to say that we should definitely make you aware of it. Also, there has been more and more chicanery, I guess I would call it, with the new specially appointed prosecutor, Hank Brennan, in terms of misrepresentations, as from my observation, that he's made to the court, and some very imbalanced rulings coming down from the court that even contravene her prior rulings in the first trial. So while there was two different camps, there's now, it's like throwing gasoline on a fire, because with all of, and those are just some examples that I've just laid out to you, with all of that happening, we're now in a position where the people who feel so strongly for Karen Read and civil rights and her right to a fair trial, they now feel validated from the sense I'm getting that there's really something going on wrong. And then the other side of the camp, the anti-free Karen Readers, they're, from my observation, getting very agitated at the groundswell of frustration and the kind of uproariousness of the Free Karen Read movement in the wake of all of these developments, that it's just kind of caused more of a just a chasm between both sides. And I don't see it getting any better anytime soon. Yeah.
What do you think as an attorney is going to be the plight for the defense in trial number 2?
The plight for the defense in trial number 2, meaning what is going to be
what is their biggest obstacle?
Biggest obstacle? That's a good question. So the biggest obstacle, as I see it, for the defense in trial 2.0, I don't know if I want to say that publicly, because I don't want to signal to the Commonwealth, because I make no secret of what side I fall on. But to answer your question, my feeling is the biggest obstacle will be the
I'll put it on screen here.
What is that?
The judge.
Do I not see her on the screen?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
The judge. I mean,
well, the judge is the biggest plight. This case, I mean, I do agree with you, DJ. She is the biggest plight, but she's more of a proceduralist. She's the one that's supposed to properly be calling balls and strikes. From a factual standpoint, the biggest bad fact that I think she has to, Karen, meaning Karen and her team, have to surmount, is the fact that she has been speaking to publications and giving her statements, none of which I feel are inculpatory to her, but I can understand why some people feel that they are either inconsistent with her position as throughout the defense, as has been communicated in testimony or statements of her attorneys. So what she's been saying to some of these publications has at least caused people to suspect that, she did something wrong, and is trying to cover it up. I disagree with that. I can reconcile all of her public statements to journalists and say, no. This would have been the mindset of a woman who had been consuming alcohol, which she makes no secret of, the night before, and wakes up after a few hours of sleep and her boyfriend's not in the house and your mind is in a tizzy, you're trying to piece it together. I think it's her statements, if they do come into evidence, and there's different ways for them to come into evidence, those will be a challenge. And then also there is going to be, and I don't know what it says in it, a new accident reconstruction. So presumably if they have, and again, this is a presumption, if they have a better expert outlay on how this accident could have taken place within the very limited parameters of Apple phone health data, GPS data, the key cycles, the data from the chip off of the Lexus. If the Commonwealth, through its reconstruction expert, can present a more credible explanation than they did in 1.0 as to how her vehicle could have caused this accident, that would be a bad fact, but I just don't know it to be true yet.
And then conversely, what's the plight of the prosecution?
That's a good question. So the plight of the prosecution is, I mean, it's everything. It's every single thing. All of the different facts amount to reasonable doubt from a legal standpoint. So from the prosecutorial standpoint, you have got a cornucopia of issues down to there's Apple phone health data that shows he meaning John O'Keefe, went up and down 3 flights of stairs. You've got the fact that Karen's vehicle hit or connected with his home Wi-Fi at One Meadows by 12:36 a.m. That is not subject to debate. That came from the testimony of the Commonwealth's own witness, Nicholas Guarino. So as far as this officer is concerned, and he's kind of entangled himself up into some other snares in the Birchmore case, for example, but he puts her connected to the Wi-Fi at One Meadows by 12:36 a.m. And if that's the case, there is no way, unless she is Mario Andretti or someone out of a Jetsons episode, she would be able to fly her way from 34 Fairview Drive to One Meadows in a matter of minutes, and the minutes don't track with the other evidence. When the other car, which was driven by, I want to say it was Ryan Nagel, was driving it, might have been D'Antano, but chat, forgive me. But when they were at the scene, by the time Karen was there and was spotted alone in her vehicle by 3 fact witnesses, D'Antano, Ryan Nagel, and Heather Maxson being alone in that car, and then the time that she would have left the scene and gotten to One Meadows, it's impossible for that to have happened. Then you couple the fact that just the messier, stupid facts, like the third-party culprits, none of their testimony is credible on key issues, ranging from why phones were discarded by Brian Albert, Brian Higgins. Why same day, and on the wake of news breaking, at least in a small circle, that their phones were going to be requested to be.
They got word that there was going to be a court order to retain their phones one day in advance, so that's the day they both got rid of their phones.
Right. So the same day that happens, and it's right when they get word that it's going to happen. You've got self-curated texts from Brian Higgins and a decorated dude, a self-proclaimed decorated dude. But you've got texts that he curated on his own between him and the defendant, Karen Reed, that he, for what it's worth, he procures them through a federal kiosk at the Canton Police Department, but he selected what text he was going to hand over to the investigating officers, as opposed to handing over his entire phone. He knows how these investigations work, and he testified that he knows how these investigations work. So there's something suspicious there. You've got a panoply of butt dials. I mean, I don't know if the laws of physics seek to exist or the laws of telephonics seek to exist in Canton or on that night, but by my count, it was like 10 different butt dials back and forth between Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, Jennifer McCabe, John O'Keefe, to the point where, technologically speaking, it certainly doesn't track, because these calls would have gone to voicemail. There would have been no callbacks. I know I'm missing very important facts. So
Nicholas Barrow. So the one officer in the town, I think I told you this when we spoke on the phone, Kate, that Nicholas Barros was a Dighton police officer where Karen's mom and dad lived, which is not close to Canton. So when the state police asked him to join in the seizure of the vehicle, he described the taillight as having a crack with a piece falling down inside. And then when they took it back to Canton and brought it to their police sally port, the photograph, they didn't photograph the car as it sat when they seized it. They didn't have a photographer come. They didn't do any of that. They photographed it after they got it to the police sally port, and it was a completely smashed tail light in 45 pieces.
Yeah, and that actually helps me, DJ, because now I'm remembering the other parts of the plight, because not only that, where you have the officer from Dighton who basically said the taillight was cracked but not completely broken, and he has no dog in this fight. I mean, and
Right.
not his pig, not his farm, but the lack of documentation, whether it's photographic, written in written form by law enforcement, of key pieces of evidence or key interviews of witnesses. So the fact that there were no pictures taken, like how many people just take a picture when you're pulling into a parking garage to say, okay, this is where I parked, let me remember what floor I'm on. He didn't take a picture of the taillight. There's no picture of that taillight that is anywhere has been produced since until after that that vehicle had been within the custody of the Massachusetts State Police. The fact that there were multiple other locations that this vehicle could have been taken and were passed by, but only was taken further to the Canton PD, where there's a conflict of interest.
Yeah, that's what Clerk Jim Clown is saying here, is that although so because Brian Albert's brother was a detective in the Canton Police Department, and because it was a murder, so there was actually two reasons for the recusal. One is because I don't think Canton PD handles murder cases. They give it over to the detectives within the Norfolk County DA's office, which are state troopers. They did not bring it to an MSP barracks. In fact, there were two closer to Dighton where they could have brought the vehicle, but instead they brought it to Canton, the one police organization that had recused itself from the investigation. And this way, I actually called Officer Peter Murphy today and asked him this very question. And I said, they had to have called, if someone from the Norfolk DA's office had have called the police barracks, and those guys said, hey man, don't bring that car here. We know about O'Keefe. We don't want any part of this. And they must have been told that because they weren't going to participate in any, because now we had a video expert on and she said that the video copy is not original. What Nan was referring to as the copies of the cell phones that they got, they could see that not one of them were a genuine forensic cell phone extraction. All of them had been altered. And Olivia Niles in the chat right now, and she explains this better than I can. The hash values were missing and data was missing because they had been altered. That is what they turned over to the defense in August or something like that. I don't remember. It was a long time after the event. So Olivia, if you're there, you could explain hash value, but that's essentially true. That's what happened. They monkeyed with everything from the computer on Karen's car to the tail light to the cell phones, everything. There's no, it defies, you just can't believe this actually happened. That's all I have for you.
That's so true though. It's one of those things where in trying to boil down all of the challenges that the Commonwealth has to face, there's just so many. Like, I cannot believe all of the things that I know that I'm even forgetting. Like, thank you, DJ. Thank you, Olivia, for just adding that on. So the bigger picture of it all, Kate, is it's just some of these things are on their own amount to reasonable doubt under the legal standard. And then when you put them all together, you're like, what's going on here? Which is one of the reasons why, like, a lawyer like myself, not from that jurisdiction, has, among others, have chosen to speak up, because we just don't see it working that way. And I'm assuming you had heard that one of the alternate jurors who didn't sit, now she's working for the defense. That's a very telling to someone like me.
Did you know that, Kate? No?
I did. My last question is, do you think this is going to be a precedent-setting verdict? Do you think that, or what is the legacy of this case?
Yeah. So a precedent-setting verdict, I can't say that, just because if it's not, I mean, if she's acquitted or she's convicted, I think it just, the conviction or the acquittal is just going to get lost in the sauce. It's going to be, the verdict is going to be what it is. But in terms of the legacy of the case, I'm hopeful she will be acquitted. So I'm going to answer your question from that perspective. When she's acquitted, when a jury applies the correct legal standard, and when there is what I describe as a future reckoning, a look back of all of the missteps down, ranging from how it was investigated from the moment it was reported to the continuing investigation that went on thereafter, to the missteps in terms of the law enforcement hierarchical structure, to then the involvement by the district attorney's office and the upcharging of her when it appears to me that she wasn't going to plea, and she was going to put up a fight. Then she gets upcharged, to the additional factors of all of the missteps of trial 1.0, and the judge factor, because this judge clearly is making rulings that are unequal to both sides. And they just continue to this day. That when there is that reckoning, it is my feeling that there is going to be a complete overhaul of the law enforcement up in that neck of the woods, the Massachusetts State Police as well. And that was a good start that former Trooper Proctor was fired. And he was fired partially in relation to his investigation and bias exhibited in this case. But in addition to that, I think there's going to be, while I cannot forecast robust future prosecutions of those who really committed this crime, because as we all know, when you pursue one defendant so hard, you're shooting yourself in the foot if you're wrong, because you're then giving other future potential culprits an easy person to point to, and to get themselves out of future charges related to the murder or killing of John O'Keefe. But I think that there will be a reckoning and an overhaul of all of those systems, from judiciary all the way down to law enforcement. And I hope that does happen. And I do truly hope that one day Karen decides to file a civil rights action and to point out all of the different ways that she and her due process rights have been abused throughout the course of the last 3 years. And ones that go far beyond the fact that she was wrongfully prosecuted, because this case also has that additional element of confirmation bias and complete violation of her civil rights as it relates to the lead investigator objectifying her and speaking about her in such an inappropriate manner, exhibiting nothing but bias as to her, to his buddies and to some of his fellow law enforcement officers. So there's a different level to a future civil rights action that they all should be concerned about, but most notably former Trooper Proctor, because his conduct, especially, if he's not aware of this now, he should be soon, which is his conduct as it relates to how he spoke about her in those text communications. And I'm sure there were more. And I'm sure there were also private communications where he said it as well, verbally, that is. Those are things that are not covered by insurance. They're not covered by self-insurance programs or captive programs that different public entities have, and different municipalities have, different states have. Those are things that are willful and wanton levels of conduct that would never be covered by insurance. So he's got a lot of personal financial exposure to her as well.
Well, thank you for letting me jump in. I think I'm going to have. I think I'm going to have a former FBI agent on my show this week to talk about their investigation. So
nice.
If you want to jump over and check out my podcast, please do so. And grateful for your time. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, we will have you in the show notes and everything, Kate, and you on your Substack as well. And your,
thank you.
Podcast. Yes, ma'am.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay,
Thank
bye.
you for joining in. Bye. Yeah, it's so difficult to explain because there's so many elements of this case. You know, we hadn't even gotten to how the I think her name was Katie McLaughlin, was a friend of Caitlin Albert and is the one that says, I heard her say I did it. So there's just so many elements to this that is just Can
Yeah.
you check and see what's dropped by Betero?
Oh, that's right. I still haven't seen. I didn't look at that while I've been
Yep,
streaming.
I appreciate you, NCSHP retired. We're about out of time. We're very appreciative of Nan giving so much of her time to us tonight. And I appreciate all of your questions, the super chats, the gifts of the memberships is really cool. This is probably like the most energetic episode we've had in months, probably.
Really?
So, yeah, I mean, let me tell you, I don't know. I haven't seen these kind of numbers. It's been a while. So you are definitely drawing them in, Nan, despite
Oh,
the fact. So, yeah, thank you so much.
well, thanks everyone for joining. But you guys should show up all the time for calling all beings, whether I'm here or not. These two are sweethearts.
We really appreciate you. I know that, you're a very wanted commodity. I know you've already appeared on air today, and the community here, all these folks in here, I'm seeing them in Limon Pickett's timely manner. Our new cat,
Love the names.
retired teacher. There's so many of you. AJK, you've been incredibly, incredibly generous tonight. All of us appreciate what you've done, Nan, because without you, we don't understand what the hell's going on in this case. So,
My God. Oh, well, I plan to keep showing up. Maybe
Thank you.
not so much on YouTube, but people should ask if I'm around and able and motivated. I'm happy to pop in, and definitely if anyone is interested, I'm quite active on Twitter and on it's more of like a Facebook page, not my personal Facebook. So if anyone wants to follow my thoughts there, but otherwise, let's just all be on the same team and work together and watch and support and spread the word, because Karen needs all the help she's going to get. She needs it.
She does.
She
So
does.
anybody, I don't know that, emotionally or mentally, me, myself, or a lot of us could handle what she has, knowing how dishonest and how they're really just trying to ruin her because they know they can't convict her. They don't have the evidence to get 12 people to say that, unless they literally hire 12 people. They're not going to get that. So, yeah, she's carrying a heavy load, and people like you and, Beatrice here help her kind of bear that load. So,
Thank you.
Nan, can I ask you one final question? Do you think there's anything odd about the fact that she's pushing for this set of April 1st jury pool? Like, do you find it anything wonky there?
Yeah, I do, because every attorney who does trial work, whether it's civil or criminal, will tell you in normal jurisdictions, everything's fungible. So even if Karen needs to have her trial, her retrial before July 1st to comport with mistrial rules up there, even if that's true, and I've only heard that to be true, I didn't read the statute, but let's assume that's true. There's time between April 1st and July 1st for that to take place. But beyond that, they can, it seems a little suspicious that she wants this jury pool in an April 1st start date. But many attorneys will tell you, you can bring those jurors in and you can stagger them, and you can even tell them report back on May 1st. You can tell them report back on May 15th. So you're not wasting the jurors. I feel like it seems a little pushed for me, a little too sus, as my kids say. Something sus about that. I can't put my finger on it, but
summer break.
Yeah, she wants to go to her cottage, as
Yeah.
I've heard, her summer cottage.
Yeah. That's that. You could see the way she thinks. She thinks not like the best of civil servants, but like the worst, the laziest sort of connotation of civil servants, and thinks about stuff, these long lunch breaks, and, just making people jump to her thing because she can. Not being a servant of the people is like, okay, I'll stay late so that so that we can hear all these motions today. I can make a ruling from the bench, and then maybe these people can go back to Los Angeles, and that this defendant doesn't have to shell out more money. Bev cares about Bev, and she is not fooling anybody. I'm sorry.
I mean, that may be it. I've even heard there's suspicions that there are plants.
Thank you, teacher.
That's what I was getting at. Yeah.
People planted in this jury pool. I don't know. Conspiracy theorists might might be able to better articulate it for me. It might be she wants her summer. It might be there's planted people in the pool. It might be a whole slew of different factors. What I can tell you is I know, as other lawyers do, that in the real legal world, this trial did not have to take place April 1st. So it just feels unnatural to me and inflexible, especially when, at least up until a few days ago, there were pending appeals of her convictions. And I have heard, although I didn't see, that Karen may want to go to the Supreme Court and apply for cert before the Supreme Court, which, I'm not saying there's a lot of hope to be held in that avenue, but something just doesn't add up, Bia, as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, mods. Thank you, guests. On behalf of Nan Gallagher, Bia, this is DJ and calling all
Thank
beings
you,
saying
Nan.
peace out.
Thanks,
See you
guys.
One
soon.
love. See you down the road.
Thanks, guys. Everyone
Bye.
have a great
Thank you.
night. It's been a pleasure being here, and keep showing up.
Thank you, love.
Bye, guys.